Hello, Cardinals, and today we will be continuing our reading of Octavia Butler's Kindred The Fall 1. I think Kevin was as lonely and out of place as I was when I met him, though he was handling it better, but then he was about to escape. I was working out of a casual labor agency. We regulars called it a slave market. Actually, it was just the opposite of slavery. The people who ran it couldn't have cared less whether or not you showed up to do the work they offered. They always had more job hunters than jobs anyways. If you wanted them to think about using you, you went to their office around 6 in the morning, signed in, and sat down to wait. Waiting with you were winos trying to work themselves into a few more bottles, poor women with children trying to supplement their welfare checks, kids trying to get a first job, older people who'd lost one job too many, and usually a poor crazy old street lady who talked to herself constantly and who wasn't going to be hired no matter what because she only wore one shoe. You sat and sat until the dispatcher either sent you out on a job or sent you home. Home meant no money, put another potato in the oven, or in desperation sell some blood at one of the storefronts down the street from the agency. I had only done that once. Getting sent out meant the minimum wage minus Uncle Sam's share for as many hours as you were needed. You swept floors, stuffed envelopes, took inventory, washed dishes, sorted potato chips, really, cleaned toilets, marked prices on merchandise. You did whatever you were sent out to do. It was nearly always mindless work, and as far as most employers were concerned, it was done by mindless people. Non-people rented for a few hours, a few days, a few weeks. It didn't matter. I did the work. I went home, I ate, and then I slept for a few hours. Finally, I got up and wrote. At 1 or 2 in the morning, I was fully awake, fully alive, and busy working on my novel. During the day, I carried a little box of no-dos. I kept awake with them, but not very wide awake. The first thing Kevin said to me was, "Why do you go around looking like a zombie all the time?" He was just one of several regular employees at an auto parts warehouse where a group of us from the agency were doing an inventory. I was wandering around between shelves of nuts, bolts, hubcaps, chrome, and heaven knew what else, checking other people's work. I had a habit of showing up every day and of being able to count, so the supervisor decided that, zombie or not, I should check the others. He was right. People came in after a hard night of drinking and counted 5 units per clearly marked 50-unit container. "Zombie," I repeated, looking up from a tray of short black wires at Kevin. "You look like you sleepwalk through the day," he said. "Are you high on something or what?" He was just a stock helper or some such bottom-of-the-ladder type. He had no authority over me, and I didn't owe him any explanations. "I do my work," I said quietly. I turned back to the wires, counted them, corrected the inventory slip, initialed it, and moved down to the next shelf. "Buzz told me you were a writer," said the voice that I thought had gone away. "Look, I can't count with you talking to me." I pulled out a tray full of large screws, 25 to a box. "Take a break." "Did you see that the agency guy they sent home yesterday? He took one break too many. Unfortunately, I need this job." "Are you a writer?" I'm a joke as far as Buzz is concerned. He thinks people are strange if they even read books. Besides," I added bitterly, "what would a writer be doing working out of a slave market?" "Keeping herself in rent and hamburgers, I guess. That's what I'm doing working at a warehouse." I woke up a little then and really looked at him. He was an unusual-looking white man, his face young, almost unlined, but his hair completely gray and his eyes so pale as to almost be colorless. He was muscular, well-built, but no taller than my own 5'8", so that I found myself looking directly into the strange eyes. I looked away, startled, wondering whether I'd really seen anger there. Maybe he was more important in the warehouse than I thought. Maybe he had some authority. "Are you a writer?" I asked. "I am now," he said and smiled. "Just sold a book. I'm getting out of here for good on Friday." I stared at him with a terrible mixture of envy and frustration. "Congratulations." "Look," he said, still smiling, "it's almost lunchtime. Eat with me. I want to hear about what you're writing." And he was gone. I hadn't said yes or no, but he was gone. "Hey," whispered another voice behind me. Buzz, the agency clown when he was sober. Wine put him into a kind of trance, though, and he just sat and stared and looked retarded, which he wasn't, quite. He just didn't give a damn about anything, including himself. He drank up his pay and walked around in rags. Also, he never bathed. "Hey, you two gonna get together and write some books?" he asked, leering. "Get out of here," I said, breathing as shallowly as possible. "You're gonna write some pornography together, and he went away laughing. Later, at one of the round rusting metal tables in the corner of the warehouse that served as the lunch area, I found out more about my new writer friend, Kevin Franklin, his name was. And he'd not only gotten his book published, but he'd made a big paperback sale. He could live on the money for a while he wrote his next book. He could give up shit work, hopefully forever. "Why aren't you eating?" he asked when he stopped for breath. The warehouse was in a newly built industrial section of Compton, far away from coffee shops and hot dog stands to discourage most of us from going out to eat. Some people brought their lunches, others brought them from the catering truck. I had done neither. All I was having was a cup of the free dishwater coffee available to all the warehouse workers. "I'm on a diet," I said. He stared at me for a moment and then got up and motioned me up. "Come on." "Where?" "To the truck if it's still there." "Wait a minute, you don't have to." "Listen, I've been on that kind of diet." "I'm all right," I lied, embarrassed. "I don't want anything." He left me sitting there, went to the truck, and came back with a hamburger, milk, and a small wedge of apple pie. "Eat," he said. "I'm still not rich enough to waste money, so eat." And to my own surprise, I ate. I hadn't intended to. I was caffeine jittery and surly and perfectly capable of wasting his money. After all, I told him not to spend it, but I ate. Buzz sidled by. "Hey," he said, low voice. "Porn," and he moved on. "What?" said Kevin. "Nothing," I said. "He's crazy." And then, "Thanks for the lunch." "Sure. Now tell me, what is it that you write?" "Short stories so far, but I'm working on a novel." "Naturally. Have any of your stories sold?" "Some, to little magazines no one ever heard of, the kind that pay in copies of the magazine." He shook his head. "You're going to starve." "No, after a while I'll convince myself that my aunt and uncle were right." "About what? That you should have been an accountant?" I surprised myself again by laughing out loud. The food was reviving me. "They didn't think of accounting," I said, "but they would have approved of it. It's what they would call sensible. They wanted to be a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher like my mother. At the very best, a teacher." "Yes," he sighed, "I was supposed to be an engineer myself." "That's better, at least." "Not to me." "Well, anyway, now you have proof that you were right." He shrugged and didn't tell me what he would later, that his parents, like mine, were dead. They had died years before in an auto accident, still hoping that he might come to his senses and become an engineer. My aunt and uncle said I could write in my spare time if I wanted to, I told him. Meanwhile, for the real future, I was to take something sensible in school if I expected them to support me. I went from the nursing program into a secretarial major and went from there into elementary education, all in 2 years. It was pretty bad, so was I. "What did you do?" he asked. "Flunk out?" I choked on a piece of pie crust. "Of course not. I always got good grades. They just didn't mean anything to me. I couldn't manufacture enough interest in the subjects to keep me going. Finally, I got a job, moved away from home, and quit school. I still take extension classes at UCLA, though, when I can afford them. Writing classes." "Is this the job you got?" "No, I worked for a while at an aerospace company. I was just a clerk typist, but I talked my way into their publicity office. I was doing articles for their company newspaper and press releases to send out. They were glad to have me do it once I showed them I could. They had a writer for the price of a clerk typist." "Sounds like something you could have stayed with and moved up." "I meant to. Ordinary clerical work I couldn't stand, but that was good. And then about a year ago, they laid off the whole department." He laughed, but it sounded like sympathetic laughter. Buzz, coming back from the coffee machine, muttered chocolate and vanilla porn. I closed my eyes in exasperation. He always did that, started a joke that wasn't funny to begin with, and then beat it to death. God, I wish he'd get drunk and shut up. "Does getting drunk shut him up?" asked Kevin. I nodded. "Nothing else will do it." No matter, I heard what he said this time. The bell rang, ending the lunch half hour, and he grinned. He had a grin that completely destroyed the effect of his eyes, and then he got up and left. But he came back. He came back all week at breaks, at lunch. My daily drawback at the agency gave me enough money to buy my own lunches and pay my landlady a few dollars. But I still look forward to seeing him, talking to him. He had written and published 3 novels, he told me, and outside members of his family, he'd never met anyone who'd read one of them. They'd brought so little money that he'd gone on taking mindless jobs like this one at the warehouse, and he'd gone on writing, unreasonably against the advice of saner people. He was, like me, a kindred spirit, crazy enough to keep on trying, and now finally, "I'm even crazier than you," he said. After all, I'm older than you, old enough to recognize failure and stop dreaming, so I'm told. He was prematurely gray at 34. He had been surprised to learn that I was only 22. You look older, he said tactlessly. So do you, I muttered. He laughed. I'm sorry, but at least it looks good on you. I wasn't sure what it was that looked good on me, but I was glad he liked it. His likes and dislikes were becoming important to me. One of the women from the agency told me with a typical slave market candor that he and I were the weirdest looking couple she had ever seen. I told her, not too gently, that she hadn't seen much and that it was none of her business anyway. But from then on, I thought of Kevin and I as a couple. It was pleasant thinking. My time at the warehouse and his job there ended on the same day. Buzz's matchmaking had given us a week together. Listen, said Kevin on the last day, you like plays? Plays? Sure, I wrote a couple when I was in high school. One actor's pretty bad. I did something like that myself. He took something from his pocket and held it out to me. Tickets. 2 tickets to a hit play that had just come to Los Angeles. I think my eyes glittered. I don't want you to get away from me just because we won't be co-workers anymore, he said. Tomorrow evening? Tomorrow evening, I agreed. It was a good evening. I brought him home with me when it was over, and the night was even better. Sometime during the early hours of the next morning, when we lay together, tired and content in my bed, I realized that I knew less about loneliness than I had thought, and much less than I would know when he was away. 2. I decided not to go to the library with Kevin to look for forgeable free papers. I was worried about what might happen if Rufus called me from the car while it was moving. Would I arrive in his time still moving, but without the car to protect me? Or would I arrive safe and still, but have trouble when I returned home, because this time the home I returned to might be the middle of the busy street? I didn't want to find out. So while Kevin got ready to go to the library, I sat on the bed, fully dressed, stuffing a comb, a brush, and a bar of soap into my canvas bag. I was afraid I might be trapped in Rufus's time for a longer period if I went again. My first trip had lasted only a few minutes, my second a few hours. What was next? Days? Kevin came in to tell me he was going, and I didn't want him to leave me alone, but I thought I had done enough whining for one morning. I kept my fear to myself, or so I thought I did. You feel all right, he asked me. You don't look so good. I had just had my first look in the mirror since the beating, and I didn't think I looked so good either. I opened my mouth to reassure him, but before I could get the words out, I realized that something really was wrong. The room was beginning to darken and spin. Oh no, I moaned. I closed my eyes against the sickening dizziness, and then I sat hugging the canvas bag and waiting. Suddenly, Kevin was beside me, holding me. I tried to push him away. I was afraid for him without knowing why. I shouted for him to let me go. And then the walls around me and the bed beneath me vanished. I lay sprawled on the ground under a tree. Kevin lay beside me, still holding me, and between us was a canvas bag. Oh, God, I muttered, sitting up. Kevin sat up, too, and looked around wildly. We were in the woods again, and it was day this time. The country was much like when I remembered from my first trip, though there was no river in sight this time. It happened, said Kevin. It's real. I took his hand and held it, glad of its familiarity, and yet I wished that he were back at home in his place. He was probably better protection for me than free papers would have been, but I didn't want him here. I didn't want this place to touch him except through me, but it was too late for that. I looked around for Rufus, knowing that he must be nearby, and he was. At the moment I saw him, I knew I was too late to get him out of trouble this time. He was lying on the ground, his body curled in a small knot, his hands clutching one leg. Beside him was another boy, black, about 12 years old. All Rufus's attention seemed to be on his leg, but the other boy had seen us. He might even have seen us appear from nowhere. That might be why he looked so frightened now. I stood up and went over to Rufus. He didn't see me at first. His face was twisted with pain and streaked with tears and dirt, but he wasn't crying aloud. Like the black boy, he looked about 12 years old. Rufus. He looked up startled. Dana? Yes, I was surprised that he recognized me after the years that had passed for him. I saw you again, he said. You were on a bed just as I started to fall. I saw you. You did more than just see me, I said. I fell, my leg. Who are you? Demanded the other boy. She's all right, Nigel, said Rufus. She's the one I told you about, the one who put out the fire that time. Nigel looked at me and then back at Rufus. Can she fix your leg? Rufus looked at me questioningly. I doubt it, I said, but let me see anyways. I moved his hands away as gently as I could and pulled up his pant leg. His leg was discolored and swollen. "Can you move your toes?" I asked. He tried and managed to move 2 toes feebly. "It's broken," commented Kevin. He had come closer to look. "Yes," I looked at the other boy, Nigel. "Where'd he fall from?" "There," the boy pointed upward. There was a tree limb hanging high above us, a broken tree limb. "You know where he lives?" I asked. "Sure, I lived there too." The boy was probably a slave, I realized, the property of Rufus's family. "You sure do talk funny," said Nigel. "Matter of opinion," I said. "Look, if you care what happens to Rufus, you better go tell his father to send a wagon for him. He won't be walking anywhere." "He could lean on me." "No, the best way for him to go home is flat on his back, the least painful way anyhow. You go tell Rufus's father that Rufus broke his leg. Tell him to send for the doctor. We'll stay with Rufus until you get back with the wagon." "You?" He looked from me to Kevin, making no secret of the fact that he didn't find us at all trustworthy. "How come you're dressed like a man?" he said to me. "Nigel," said Kevin quietly, "don't worry about how she's dressed. Just go get some help for your friend." "Friend?" Nigel gave Kevin a frightened glance and then looked at Rufus. "Go, Nigel," whispered Rufus. "It hurts something awful. Say I said for you to go." Nigel went finally, unhappily. "What's he afraid of?" I asked Rufus. "Will he get into trouble for leaving you?" "Maybe." Rufus closed his eyes for a moment in pain. "Or for letting me get hurt. I hope not. It depends on whether anybody's made Daddy mad lately." Well, Daddy hadn't changed. I wasn't looking forward to meeting him at all. At least I wouldn't have to do it alone. I glanced at Kevin, and he knelt down beside me to take a closer look at Rufus's leg. "Good thing he was barefoot," he said. "A shoe would have to be cut off that foot now." "Who are you?" said Rufus. "My name's Kevin Franklin." "Does Dana belong to you now?" "In a way," said Kevin. "She's my wife." "Wife?" Rufus squealed. I sighed. "Kevin, I think we better demote me. In this time, can't marry white people," said Rufus. I laid a hand on Kevin's arm just in time to stop him from saying whatever he would have said. The look on his face was enough to tell me I should keep quiet. "The boy learned to talk that way from his mother," I said softly, "and from his father, and probably from the slaves themselves." "Learned to talk what way?" asked Rufus. "About," I said. "I don't like that word, remember? Try calling me black or Negro or even colored." "What's the use of saying all that, and how can you be married to him?" "Ruth, how'd you like it if people called you white trash when they talked to you?" "What?" He started up angrily, forgetting his leg, and then fell back. "I'm not trash," he whispered. "You damn black—" "Hush, Ruth." I put my hand on his shoulder to quiet him. Apparently I'd hit the nerve I'd aimed at. "I didn't say you were trash. I said how'd you like to be called trash? I see you don't like it, and I don't like being called either." He lay silent, frowning at me as though I were speaking a foreign language, and maybe I was. "Where we come from," I said, "it's vulgar and insulting for whites to call blacks. Also, where we come from, whites and blacks can marry, but it's against the law." "It is here, but it isn't where we come from." "Where do you come from?" I looked at Kevin. "You asked for it," he said. "You want to try telling him?" He shook his head. "No point." "Not for you, maybe, but for—" I thought for a moment, trying to find the right words. "This boy and I are liable to have a long association, whether we like it or not. I want him to know. Good luck." "Where do you come from?" repeated Rufus. "You sure don't talk like anybody I have ever heard." I frowned, thought, and finally shook my head. "Ruf, I want to tell you, but you probably won't understand. We don't understand ourselves, really." "I already don't understand," he said. "I don't know how I can see you when you're not here, or how you got here, or anything. My leg hurts so much I can't even think about it. Let's wait then, when you feel better." "When I feel better, maybe you'll be gone. Dana, tell me." "All right, I'll try. Have you ever heard of a place called California?" "Yeah, Mama's cousin went there on a ship." "Luck?" "Well, that's where we're from, California. But it's not the California your cousin went to. We're from a California that doesn't exist yet, Rufus. California, 1976. "What's that?" "I mean, we come from a different time as well as different place. I told you it was hard to understand." "But what's 1976? "That's the year. That's what year it is for us when we're at home." "But it's 1819. It's 1819 everywhere. You're talking crazy." "No doubt this is a crazy thing that's happened to us, But I'm telling you the truth. We come from a future time and place. I don't know how we get here. We don't want to come. We don't belong here. But when you're in trouble, somehow you reach me, call me, and I come. Although, as you can see now, I can't always help you. I could have told him about our blood relationship. Maybe I would if I saw him again when he was older. For now, though, I had confused him enough. This is crazy stuff, he repeated, and he looked at Kevin. You tell me, are you from California? Kevin nodded. Yes. Then are you Spanish? California is Spanish. It is now, but it'll be part of the United States eventually, just like Maryland or Pennsylvania. When? It will become a state in 1850. But it's only 1819. How could you know? He broke off, looked from Kevin to me in confusion. This isn't real, he said. You're making it all up. It's real, said Kevin quietly. But how could it be? We don't know, but it is. He thought for a while, looking from one to the other of us. I don't believe you, he said. Kevin made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. I don't blame you. I shrugged. All right, Ruf, I wanted you to know the truth, but I can't blame you for not being able to accept it either. 1976, said the boy slowly. He shook his head and closed his eyes. I wondered why I had bothered to try to convince him. After all, how accepting would I be if I met a man who claimed to be from 1819 or 2019 for that matter? Time travel was science fiction in 1976. In 1819, Rufus was right. It was sheer insanity. No one but a child would even have listened to Kevin and me talk about it. If you know California is going to be a state, said Rufus, you must know some other things that are going to happen. We do, I admitted, some things, not very much. We're not historians. But you ought to know everything if it already happened in your time. How much do you know about 1719, Ruf? He stared at me blankly. People don't learn everything about the times that came before them, I said. Why should they? He sighed. Tell me something, Dana. I'm trying to believe you. I dug back into American history that I had learned both in and out of school. Well, if this is 1819, then the president is James Monroe, right? Yeah. The next president will be John Quincy Adams. When? I frowned, calling more of the list of presidents I had memorized for no particular reason when I was in school. In 1824, Monroe will have 2 terms. What else? I looked at Kevin. He shrugged. All I can think of is something I got from those books that we looked through last night. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise opened the way for Missouri to come into the Union as a slave state and Maine to come in as a free state. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about, Rufus? No, sir. I didn't think so. Have you got any money? Money? Me? No. Well, you've seen money, haven't you? Yes, sir. Coins should have the year they were made stamped on them, even now. They do. Kevin reached into his pocket and brought out a handful of change. He held it out to Rufus, and Rufus picked out a few coins. 1965, he read, 1967, 1971, 1970. None of them say 1976. None of them say 18 anything either, said Kevin. But here, he picked out a bicentennial quarter and handed it to Rufus. 1776, 1976, the boy read, 2 dates. The country's 200 years old in 1976, said Kevin. Some of the money has changed to commemorate the anniversary. Are you convinced? Well, I guess you could have made these yourself. Kevin took back his money. You might not know about Missouri, kid, he said wearily, but you would have made a good Missourian. What? Just a joke. Hasn't come into fashion yet. Rufus looked troubled. I believe you. I don't understand like Dana said, but I guess I believe. Kevin sighed. Thank God. Rufus looked up at Kevin and managed to grin. You aren't as bad as I thought you'd be. Bad? Kevin looked at me accusingly. I didn't tell him anything about you, I said. I saw you, said Rufus. You were fighting with Dana just before you came here, or it looked like fighting. Did you make all those marks on her face? No, I didn't, Kevin said quickly. And he and I weren't fighting. I'm sorry. No, I didn't, I said quickly, and he and I weren't fighting. Wait a minute, said Kevin. How could he not know about that? Like I said, I shrugged. He saw us before we got here. I don't know how he does it, but he's done it before. I looked down at Rufus. Have you told anyone else about seeing me? Just Nigel. Nobody else would believe me. Good. Best you not tell anyone else about us now, either. Nothing about California or 1976. I took Kevin's hand and held it. We're going to have to fit in as best we can with the people here for as long as we have to stay. That means we're going to have to play the roles you gave us. You'll say you belong to him? Yes, I want you to say it too if anyone asks. That's better than saying you're his wife. Nobody would believe that. Kevin made a sound of disgust. I wonder how long we'll be stuck here, he muttered. I think I'm getting homesick already. I don't know, I said, but stay close to me. You got here because you were holding me. I'm afraid that may be the only way that you get home.